musician by trade, but I've been spending a lot of time learning really quickly about all of this stuff. And one of the things that sort of got me off the ground early on was the ability to do digital modes. When I got my little HF radio, it was the right around the dark time of the year, the bottom of the calendar, mid-December kind of thing. And it was easy enough to get a little, 10-meter antenna together, just a vertical dipole hanging off of the hummingbird feeder off the eaves of my house. And then the next thing you know, I find out about this digital mode stuff where you can work with crummy propagation, weak signals, and you can still bang out QSOs at a high rate of speed. So I got hooked real quick on this stuff. And that's kind of where this has gone for me. Today's presentation is just going to take a look a little bit at my thoughts on digital modes. Everybody's got their own reasons. I'll talk about a couple of the different protocols that have particularly caught my attention, some of the software that I've been using to get us there, ways that you can make it a little easier for yourself to get spotted while you're out there. And then, as Glenn had mentioned in his email, some bonus material relating to some of the other fun stuff that I've been taking on. If you've got questions, I'll kind of be following along in the chat, so you can dump stuff into the chat. Might as well pop that open for myself right now.
Can I just make sure, Braden, I see your screen fine, but it's on a separate monitor for me. Is anybody else is anybody who cannot see Braden's presentation? Should be a PowerPoint screen. Everybody's got it? Okay, sorry about that.
Good here.
All right. Good, actually, and so the photo in this shot here, I took my my friend Ross, my stand partner in crime. He's another bass player, also a ham, Victor Alpha 7 Sierra Victor Tango, and I took him out to the park one day, and I'm just like, hey, check this out. We were doing a POTA activation, my first, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I was doing some digital mode stuff, so we just popped this out, and so it made it really interesting to get a chance to share that. So why would we want to do digital modes? So for me, my whole thing about being able to do digital modes is squeezing as much as I can out of as little as I can. So when propagation conditions aren't super, when you've got weak signals, this is when digital modes can really become particularly useful. And the other part of it as well, and it's something that I've been considering through a variety of other things, is that it can also cater to different groups of people in the ham world. There are those that are like, CW till I die, and there are those who are like, nah, I can, pick up a mic. But then there are those that either don't want to pick up the mic, or who are timid, they're shy. And so then digital modes become a way that you can actually start to, figure out your systems and work your way through this. It's also good for those with accessibility issues. So when you got folks who can work with keyboards and mice in different ways, and they have the ability to engage in amateur radio activities. Yes, great for testing antennas and reverse beacons. And then of course, then you can drift into the MCOM off-grid, the adventurers like myself. So for example, next time I go hiking or bike packing, I'm going to bring my little HF rig with me, and I'll try out one of these digital modes that will get me to do text-like communications. So we've got some extra stuff. Then you got your preppers, and for those when stuff hits the fan and whatnot. So it's kind of a catch-all. It makes it really interesting for a lot of folks. So when we talk about protocols, and keep your pinkies up, there's a million and two acronyms that's just alphabet soup out there. The three that I'm going to concentrate on this evening are FT8, FT4, which are just theme and variations. And the third one is JS8 call, which again is a draw from the FT8, FT4 world, but it deals with freeform messaging rather than strict message formats, and I'll get into that in a second. FT8, Frank Taylor design. So there's a couple of hams got together, made the stuff. It's a frequency shift keying modulation. I'm not ultra familiar with it. I know there's a lot of electrical engineers out there who would be way more familiar with it than I would be. All I know is it just takes these weak signals, it runs it through a filter 2-3 times, and it can make a best guess or a very educated guess as to what's coming down the pipe, which is very, very cool. So minimal QSOs for days. We can go and do this, and it's not something that's going to eat up a ton of time. It does take a little bit of time for transmit and receive. So when we're talking about FT8, we're looking at a 15-second timing. So you'll read a message, you respond to it, and each of these actions along the way takes 15 seconds. To get a successful QSO through FT8 and FT4, there are 6 messages. Basically, you get a CQ. You answered the CQ with your grid square. They come back to you with a signal report. You reply with a signal report. They say, got it, thanks. You say, got it, thanks. QSO's done. Everything's cool. And then your program will log it for you. Now, it works real well with the low power stuff. There are guys out there with, the 100 watt systems. Something about digital, and again, it's the kind of voodoo that I'm not 100% up on, but you'll fry your finals if you throw too much power at this. So in a 10 watt world, in a 5 watt world, no problem. I've easily reached across North America and across the Pacific on 5 watts using digital and gotten excellent signal reports back. It works really well with compromised antennas. I'm going to do a couple of sample QSOs tonight. I'll see what I can pull up. I'm watching the dials, and conditions aren't awesome, but that's actually going to work in our favor for demonstration purposes. But right now, I'm running a 41-foot end-fed random wire with a 9-to-1 and a couple of ground wires, and we'll see what happens. But I've had no problem on everything from 40 down to 10 banging out QSOs with this. As I was reading up on this FT8, FT4, they're excellent ways to get your DXCC, your worked all states, and you can do that with a minimal setup. It's really quite easy to get going on this. JS8 call. This one's fun. So JS8 call is a newer protocol. Jordan, I can't remember his last name, but obviously it starts with an S. He took this idea as being able to send longer messages through this digital format, to the point where you can actually have fully typed out conversations with people. The transmit receive time, it's clipped at, I think it's 10 or 15 seconds. I can't remember off the top of my head, for the amount of characters that you can smash out in one chunk. So you'll type a long message. It'll be great. It'll send it in blocks. And there's a predefined character that'll tell you when the end of the message is received. When you get onto a frequency with JS8 call, just like with FT8, FT4, you'll see, the waterfall, and you'll see these conversations going on. And you can just be in the room, as it were, as you're picking out these messages and talking to folks. The Tech Prepper, if you've checked him out on YouTube, uses it for off-grid stuff, like I was saying, for his adventuring. So from his home QTH, he'll go for a long trail run with his gear, throw up a random wire somewhere, and he's got a small Raspberry Pi with a tiny little screen, maybe a little keyboard and stuff like that. And he'll go and smash out some messages with his pals while he's out running about. It's gaining some traction.
Who's that guy, Braden?
Jordan, I want to say Shearer. Yeah, if you go to the JS8 call website, js8call.com, you'll find his name there.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's the guy who's making it. So it's gaining popularity quickly. They do a QSO party, I think, once a month, where you can just get on the bands and have a chat with some folks. And I got on there at the last QSO party. It was a ton of fun. You end up meeting some folks even that I've run into on some of the digital modes, the other digital modes as well. So it's kind of neat. So when we're getting into our decoding software, there's really 2 camps. The third one at the bottom, MSHV, it's a Windows Linux SUSE only. I don't have a lot of experience with that one because I'm a Mac user, but certainly the first 2 are cross-platform against all your major food groups. WSJTX is probably the easiest way in. It handles more modes, and it does echo as well, so you could do EME bounces. And it'll do contesting as well for FT8, FT4, and so on. JTDX is a bit lighter and a bit leaner. And depending on your setup, it's a little less resource hungry than WSJTX. I like JTDX better. The interface works better for my brain, but ultimately it's you're the one that's going to have to use it. I've used both. They both have their quirks and such, but they both work essentially the same in the way that they set up, in the way that they operate. There's a couple of minor things in between that you can kind of pick out as you get going along. Now, reporting. We talk about reverse beacons and stuff like that. PSK Reporter is something that you get to know pretty quickly here. And when I get into trying to do a live version of this here in a couple minutes, you'll see how PSK Reporter becomes very important for me when I start seeing how my signal is getting out to the various locations. To do this, one of the helper programs that they recommend is to use a program called Grid Tracker, which is a cross-platform piece of software that pays attention to what's going on through UDP reporting out of either of your decoders. And that Grid Tracker then takes a look at who you're trying to reach, and it provides the PSK reporting to PSK Reporter. JT Alert is another option for that as well. And same as MacLogger DX, it'll do a variety of other things, but there's a dollar tag attached to it. And I'm frugal was a term I heard used for once relating to how I operate, in that if I can make it happen for as little money as possible, that's my game. So live action demo, let's get going here. I tried this earlier in the day, and it was very interesting to see how this was going to pan out. So let me just quickly switch here to. Oh, interesting. This is hilarious. Okay. I'm just trying to pull up there. It's missing a window. I'll move that window back. There it is. All right, here's my two windows. Okay, so here's a look at what JTDX looks like. And it's running live right now. What you see at the top is the waterfall. And that's basically the live feed of what's coming in. I'm on 20 meters right now, 14074, which is the allocated frequency for FT8. And what happens is, as you can see at the top of the screen here, it's pulling in all of these columns of information. So people are setting up camp on that particular stripe of the frequency, and the computer records the audio that's coming in. Like I said, it runs it through 3 passes. If it can get it on the first pass, cool. If it doesn't, it tries it again. If it doesn't, it does it a third time. If it doesn't get anything, then it won't even report. And then it will report it then into the left column of JTDX down here. Color coding is interesting too, because it will tell you as you're going along what's happening in terms of what's being received, CQs, messages from other people. You can configure this so that you're not getting this giant window of information being thrown at you, but it's also kind of fascinating as well when you take a look at where a lot of these messages are coming from. So if you look mid-screen right here, it won't highlight right now, but there's a guy, I'll just scroll back up here, Delta 2 Uniform Yankee from Angola. This dude shows up in my list quite frequently. So Angola's managing to find its way out to North America. It's quite fascinating that. We could see here, oh, Kuwait, that's a new one for me as well. So hey, why don't we try and see if we can reach Kuwait? There's no chance I'm going to reach Kuwait tonight. But what I do is I would double click on this. Now when we go over to the second column where you can see now there's the 9 Kilo 2 Oscar Whiskey. I've responded to that CQ. Very little chance that I'm going to get them, but hey, we can try. A guy can dream. And so what happens is this little dance now starts, and we try and see what we can get. If after a couple of calls, it ends up not being a thing, then I will just disable the transmit and see who else might be in the list as well. Glenn sent out a thing about the VOA cap reporter when you look at propagation, and that's really quite a handy tool, but it's also kind of biased as well because it doesn't have every little variable that you might have in your particular setup. It's a good like big hand, small map idea for figuring out propagation and the percentage chances that you might be getting out and about, but doesn't always accurately reflect what's going on in the ground. I'm going to disable this transmit here because it's obvious that we're not going to get this guy. But with a couple of transmit cycles under our belt, I'm going to just quickly pop in a new window here. And all right, now we can take a look at where I'm being heard. So as you can see on the screen here, there's lots of people who are directly hearing what's going on at varying signal reports. I'm running 10 watts presently. So 10 watts on 20 meters, I'm getting out. And this is, again, with a compromised antenna. PSK report is great at telling us, where all my stuff is landing. So, here's a guy in Colorado getting me at minus 24. Minus 24 is on the low side in terms of reception, but anything down to minus 21, I've had acceptable results with. All the way across the country there, getting out at minus 16. That's not too bad, especially considering the blast that Glenn was saying we got yesterday, because holy crap, it was a nightmare on the bands yesterday if you tried to do anything. And so the propagation report here really matters because you'll start to see where your stuff is landing. Like I said too, it's a great way of testing your antenna, a great way to check your orientation. It's a great way to just make sure that your signal is getting out. When I first got into this game, I didn't know about PSK Reporter, so I was just like hucking darts at the world, going, "Yeah, why is nobody liking me?" But then I figured out after time that no, don't try and always go for those stations in Angola or Kuwait. They just can't hear you at this particular state in the game. So when we get back to JTDX here, let's just pick somebody who I might be able to hit. So when we're looking at the columns here, so obviously it has the time column, the dB column. The stronger the signal, that could mean anything or nothing, as we just saw on the propagation map. I usually, when I'm picking out my CQs, I try and pick somebody that is kind of in the mid pack. So, right around the low double digits kind of thing. We'll wait till this next cycle happens in a couple seconds. And you look like a good candidate right here. Whiskey Sierra 4, Alpha Sierra Echo. Use this opportunity to grab a sip of liquid here. So this process continues and continues and continues. It looks pretty noisy out there. You can see on the waterfall, normally this green line is much, much lower, but it's pretty noisy out there this evening. So we may or may not have any luck with this, but we'll give it a couple of seconds. While this is going on, does anybody have any questions or comments or observations or experience they want to share at this point?
I keep hearing that for FT8, timing is accurate timing is of the essence. What experience have you had with that?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Accurate time is of the essence. So when you look at the left column here, you'll see UTC, dB. DT is drift time. So what it's doing is it's comparing the time code of the message with the time code or the time clock in your computer, which, if you're connected to the internet, chances are is synced up with NTP. Anything over a 1 second drift is something that you got to watch out for. That comes down to processing time with your computer. So if your computer's not fast enough to pick it up, then that's where you'll end up with a lot of troubles. Now, the other half of the timing issue is that because they're 15-second messages, so it's 15 to send, 15 to receive. And that's the duty cycle. So if you look, sorry, it's just transmitting right now, so it's got my system locked up. It is processor intensive on my computer, at least. So if you look here next to the UTC clock, right next to that is a green button that says TX 00 and 30. So I'm transmitting on the minute and on the half minute. And so the person that is sending to me is flipped to that schedule. So where you start sending your CQs will kind of dictate who you're going to be hearing as part of that block, because obviously as you're transmitting, you're not receiving the people in that 15-second window. Okay, so we can see here that somebody else has picked up Whiskey Sierra 4 Alpha Sierra Echo. So the system has just gone back and said, okay, screw this, I'm going to call CQ now. And so that's exactly what the system is doing for me here. Any other questions as we're going on?
How you hardware wise connected between the computer and transmitter?
Very good. Yes. So I'm using an FX4CR radio, so manufactured by a guy in China. And so I've got a 3.5 millimeter out that goes to USB in. So it's got like this is an SDR radio that I'm using. I won't try and pick it up because it's attached to a whole bunch of stuff, but it's a little brick about yay big. Most modern radios, like a lot of the Yaesu stuff, the newer ones like the A91, FTDX, the ICOM 7000 series, the 705s, excuse me, they all have digital modes built in. Kenwood, a lot of their stuff also supports digital stuff as well. And so it really is radio dependent as far as how you get that into your computer.
You need a TNC between the transmitter and the computer?
Not with the radio setup that I've got. No, not with this particular scene. I'm just going to quickly switch antennas here because I've now exceeded, well, my antenna tuner battery has just died. And so I'm going to quickly switch to 10 meters where I don't need an antenna tuner.
I'll just comment that if you don't have a digital radio, and so the older ones wouldn't, then you use something called a sound card, which is basically the interface between your computer in a digital format and your radio, which is in an analog format. So the sound card, which is sort of like $100 or $150 or something, does that job for you, but the newer ones don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. Oof, yeah, I'm getting some bad SWR right now. So this demonstration might have to come to a close here shortly. Just let me see if I can crank out something another way here. What I'm doing is I'm tuning up here. Yeah, none of that's any good either. Let's try 30. Nope. All right. I don't want to cook my radio, so I'm just going to let it listen at this point. Yeah, so that basically takes us there. I'm just going to flip back to my presentation here. All right, and we're back. Okay. And I'll be happy to take any questions along the way towards the end as well. So, all right. Bonus content. Glenn mentioned I'd been experimenting with a program called CloudLog. CloudLog, again, one of the things that I love most about ham radio is trying to figure stuff out and tinkering to make it work. It is something that really appeals to me. And CloudLog is a PHP-based, MySQL database-backed, web-based logger. It does have some concerns, and I'll talk about them. But CloudLog has been really great for me because I can run it off my web server, which I'm lucky enough to have. And it also integrates well with the logging output from these digital modes. So I can be banging away QSOs all day long, and I don't have to worry about logging. I just go click, yep, that's good, and it dumps it straight into CloudLog. It also works for other things as well, like dumping it into HamRS, into N1MMM plus, AC log, and so on and so forth. And there are lots of ways to set that up. So this link here, I'm going to provide a copy of this presentation to distribute afterwards. So if you want to rewatch and hear all the filthy lies that I've been spreading for the last half an hour, you can come back and revisit the magic. But I do have a visitor version of my log that you can go take a look at. It's just the one set up for when I'm working from home. I've got little sublogs set aside for when I do POTA out at all the individual parks. But CloudLog, like I said, is a cloud and web-based logging application. It integrates with all of the call books and then some, more than I even recognized out there to begin with. So I kept having to sign up for more and more websites. It's great on ADIF import and export, and it does the contesting stuff as well. And the thing that actually got me as well was the simple FLE interface, which is just a text-based logging method that I found to be exceptionally fast to work with. At first, I had a hard time trying to manipulate all the different things that were going on while I was doing POTA activations. So I just resorted to handwriting everything. But with simple FLE, you can get it down to like 4 or 5 keystrokes kind of thing. You basically need to put in a number, the person's call sign, the RST for both, and then wham, it's done. And it's super, super fast to deal with. So I really like simple FLE. The UI, the user interface for CloudLog is very, very clean. Like I said, it's open source, and the devs are very, very responsive to issues. Myself and a couple of other people on GitHub had made a couple of comments about how flipping between a couple of the windows, and I can show you those here in a minute, flipping between those windows can get problematic if you're out doing field operations, and they're like, yep, we hear you, we're working on a solution, so that's great. And it also integrates really well with all the other kinds of things that you like in the HEM universe as well, like the automatic lookups and the POTA and a lot of the contesting things as well. Where it does run into some issues is that it does require an internet connection. So unlike a program like HammerS, HammerS can operate independently. So you could be out with your phone or with your tablet or a computer with HammerS installed, or a lot of these other standalone loggers, and you can punch in all the data, that's fine. But CloudLog doesn't have that option because it does run off the internet. So there's that. The mobile interface does need a little bit of work. It's usable. And I did, while the North American SSB sprint was on this weekend, I ripped out to Elk Lake and sat in my car in the rain with a 20-meter dipole flown up a tree and smacked out 20 contacts in 15 minutes kind of thing. And I was doing all of the logging on my phone. So it was a bit of work to kind of juggle all that stuff. And that's a future project, working on a PTT switch for myself. So CloudLog has got some warts. The devs are working on it, which is great. And they're very responsive.
See, Zachariah's got a question for you.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Can you not install that locally with a local?
Yes, you could
server?
actually. Yeah, if you were running a local version of Apache or PHP, you could run it locally on your computer. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just have it set up on my web server because it's simple, and that way it's cross-platform.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've got that installed as well on my web server, and it seems to be a good one. But it should be easy enough just to install it locally as well, and then you could export whatever you have locally to the internet-based one.
Yeah, back to your main log. Yeah, you could totally do a native upload. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. So QRP fun. I dug out my my 20-meter inverted V, and I literally flew it up the painter's pole, and got out there and just started making contacts and seeing where I could go. The next thing you know, I'd nabbed a 10,000 plus kilometer contact with a guy down in Chile on 5 watts, and my mind was blown. It was amazing. And that's where my little radio does an excellent job. It's 20 watts max. So I'm not going to be competing with these kilo stations anytime soon. But one of the things that I have found is that, especially like in the POTA world, folks are willing to clear the lane. If you call out saying that you're doing QRP, and either the activator or somebody else in the pileup hears you, they'll try and clear the lane for the QRP station to get through, which has been really nice. And finding that, I can make those contacts in the 7 to 10,000 K range has just been unbelievable. I've really been enjoying that. And again, it speaks to my want to do as much as I can with as little as I can. So not needing a 100-watt station, not having to lug a ton of extra gear out there. I just want to chuck a wire into a tree and see what happens, kind of thing. And that's kind of the magic and the fun for it, for me right now. FAFO, which I've sanitized to be fart around and find out, but you can figure out what the first F might be as well. I've been all the way along just like smashing my head against things, and then also scoring points as I go with all these various antenna projects that I've been working on. I did a post on my website, bradenwise.com, talking about some of my early antenna builds, and some of them that I've now dismantled and started to repurpose for a variety of other things. My latest thing that I've done is I ran down to Queel. I bought myself a little project box here, which I then basically just put a BNC connector in one end and just soldered in the wires to it. So I got positive, negative. And then I just have a series of wires at varying lengths that I just bring along with me. And so if today's the 20-meter dig, cool. Then I will take my arborist throw and I'll go chuck a rope in a tree, literally run it up the flagpole, stretch out the wires, and 20 meters it is. If that's not what I want to do, I just lower it back down, put on my 10-meter wires, and then off we go again. And that's been working very well for me. My arborist throwing skills were very weak to start. They're much better now. And for an arborist throw, literally all I've got is I took something that my brother-in-law had introduced me to, and basically it's just a ball of BBs that had been wrapped in electrical tape very, very well, with a car key tag sticking at the end. So you got a loop at one end. It weighs about 12 ounces or so, which is just enough that you can get it onto the rope and up into the tree it goes, which is good. The other antenna project that I'm working, like I say, I've got my 41-foot EFRW that's up there. My gutters, I've managed to tune up my gutters, and I'm starting to make contacts with that, which is hilarious. And then just playing a broad-based game of Willet antenna. So I'm now starting to look at chain link fences, all kinds of weird stuff, literally like going down the road going, I wonder if that would make an antenna. And I've got a couple of chunks of wire. Here's one of them, just with an alligator clip on one end and a ring terminal on the other. And I'll just bring out my 9-to-1 Balun, and we'll just see what happens, kind of thing. So it becomes a really fun game to try and see what I can tune up and who I can contact with that. Next project for me is this multi-Balun idea. I saw a video on YouTube where a guy took a toroid and just started wrapping. He did 4 different wraps on it and then soldered in varying locations, and then has all the connectors up the side to make all the various combinations for EFHW, for EFRW, and so on and so forth. So that'll be coming soon. That'll be a next project. Did I talk about it? Oh, whoops, no, I have run out of stuff. The other thing that I'm going to be working on coming up here soon is working on a packable, lightweight 20-meter Moxon. So I've got a concept in mind. I've got a 3D printable model for the middle plate, as well as the ends and all the insulators and so on and so forth. So now I'm just getting ready to start sourcing fiberglass rods or something of that nature to make this so that it's foldable, packable, and something that I can throw up, because the Moxon looks like it's going to be a solid deal. So there you have it in 35 minutes, digital modes and what I've been cooking up. So are there any questions or comments or concerns or lies that you'd like to dispel?
Can we return to timing, to accuracy of timing?
Yeah, you bet.
So when you're out and about, if you don't have internet connectivity, how are you ensuring your timing? I don't know what your platform is. Is it a Microsoft Surface or something like that?
So when I'm out and about, if I'm doing FT8 out and about, I've got my laptop with me. So it's got, it will have been reasonably accurate. So far, I haven't taken myself. I know you're heavily involved in the SOTA stuff. I haven't been far enough off grid to not have cell signal yet, so I can always grab a signal from where I'm at. So I don't think you would lose so much time between your home and a mobile activation off grid as to affect the drift time large enough.
Okay, thanks. I mean,
I have found that when I went out to the Oak Bay Marina, that my laptop seemed to be within, acceptable parameters when it came to making contacts. So yeah.
What I do is I've got an ICOM 7300, and I just tune it to WWV before I start and reset my clock. I found that it can be off significantly. I guess I don't have it synced properly when I'm at home with my computer, but it gets dead on, and then you can look at your drift times and see that you're falling in the ballpark, and that really helps.
Good
And
suggestion.
you're setting the clock on your computer from WWV?
But no, on the radio.
That's kind of immaterial.
Well,
but if the radio is the one that's, oh, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, if I'm not on the internet, I don't have any other way to set a clock.
Right. I was pretty convinced that the clock we're talking about is in the computer, dealing with the actual communication, the data protocol, rather than what's
Yeah.
on the display on the computer, on the radio.
And I wonder too, though, maybe with some like a radio like the 7300, if the computer might be able in the data uplink pull the time from the radio itself.
Well,
Right.
that's a big question. And John, I'm going to check that. I'm going to take my clock way offline, like change it 10 seconds and see what happens. But yeah, I found that it makes a difference. I can watch the drift times and see, but I'm not sure which
Interesting.
one's affecting which. So that's a good experiment that I'm going to work with.
Yeah, I'm keen to find out about that. I know I've got a 7300. My 705's got a GPS receiver built in, and I kind of wish they all did, like the 9700 and because it really needs it when you get higher in frequency. And the 905 that's come out now. But yeah, so I know I can use that. At home where I don't really operate from, certainly not for anything like FT8. I've been playing with Mindberg. I used to use D4 Thinking Man software as a time setter, but one of the things that I was reading was that FT8 likes you to adjust forward all the time on the computer rather than just jumping to a close time. So I tried the Mindberg thing before I did an OS upgrade on the desktop. And, I have to reinstall it now. So anyway, lots to think about. Thank you.
It'll be interesting, Ron, if you run that little experiment to document it for us, and we'll get it up on the web, or I'll send it out via email, the members' email or something like that. That would be really quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I use FT8 quite a bit. Late at night, I don't have to shout and wake everybody up. But the other thing I found very helpful is in antenna performance. So I purchased a hex beam in the fall there, and it's only been 10 feet off the ground. So at 10 feet, I can tell I've got a 10 dB drop on average between the person I'm calling and their signal. So I've just actually dismantled it, taking it down, and I'm going to be putting it on the roof soon. So it's very interesting to be able to see it. And I also have a DX Commander up, so it's a vertical and has a very low takeoff angle, and it doesn't have that kind of degradation, although it doesn't necessarily reach as far. So it's
interesting.
It's great for antenna experimenting as well, as you pointed out, Braden.
Very good. Any other thoughts? Any other questions, gentlemen?
I guess I also wanted to, because we had talked about it before about JS8 call, and have you used it a lot, Braden? What's your experience with it? Is it something that maybe provides a little more conversation than the FT8 side of things?
Yeah, it is a way more conversational mode. Like you can actually have conversations with people. So yeah, like during the JS8 QSO party, I had a chat with a dude named Ron and November 7 BBQ, right? And we had a great conversation for about 15 minutes, just kind of hacking it back and forth. He was in Arizona, I believe, just outside of Phoenix. And so yeah, and I'd run into him a couple of times on FT8 as well. So like I'd seen his name come up a couple of times in the log, which was fine. But it was nice to have a conversation with him, you know, talk about the weather and talk about our setups, you know, the kind of stuff that hams tend to do, right? But to do it in that text-based format as well. So yeah, JS8 call is great because again, it's free form, so you can get more than just a standard, you know, the FT8 QSO out of the picture there. You can actually talk to somebody, and you can still do the same stuff like at your SNRs and all the rest of that. But yeah, you can actually have a full-fledged conversation with someone.
Do you have a question, Peter?
Yeah, actually two questions as a complete newcomer to this subject. First of all, where do you get your wisdom from, Braden?
That goes back around to fart around and find out. I've been a computer nerd since I was just little, and so I've been messing around with computers all the way along. The only reason why I didn't get into ham, I think, was partly because there was still a code requirement back then, and I was still interested in being a musician, so I kind of turned that direction and let it go. But it's understanding a little bit about the software and just being willing to dig in, and to not be afraid to make some mistakes along the way. You know, I've crashed headlong into some challenges, and it's like, okay, that didn't work. All right, let's rewind the tape and find out where it crashed and burned, and then we'll pick up the pieces and move from there. Just experimenting has been the name of the game, and reading things, going down rabbit holes. That's the kind of stuff that I love to do.
Second question was related to manuals to these different programs. And as always, the screens are very complex and have a lot of options. And I find it sometimes difficult to find the documentation for what button does what and what to use, how to start simply and get more complex.
Yep, there are some documents out there. I pulled them up today. I'll send them along to Glenn, and he can punch them up to the group and put them on the website as well. There's a couple of really good sort of like FT8 for beginners documents that are out there. They'll take you through the software. They'll take you through the setups, the things that you need to look at, and then talking to folks like me, like Ron as well. You know, John, folks that have had the experience with the program as well. Like just reach out. Absolutely, you know, we'd be able to help you through this.
Yeah, there is some very good documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Has anyone played with the mesh networks at all?
Not I yet.
I was just gonna add that YouTube is your friend too, but I had a real tough time with getting it up. One of the reasons is because I have a Mac, so you know the amount of information available to you is not nearly as what the Windows is. So, but through YouTube, I was able to just basically follow the bouncing ball and get it running again. But I can tell you, I've had situations that I'm in right now where I've got everything torn apart on my desk here. And when I go to put it together, it'll magically not work for a while until I figure out, you know, what I didn't press. I've probably got the wrong codec in. And so it is frustrating, but that's the challenge of it too.
John.
Thanks. I'd like to go back to no, we don't have to look back at the picture, but Braden, you had just finished the attempt at contacting that fellow using FT8 on your, what was it, JDFT or something like that?
JTDX, yeah.
JTDX, okay. And I have run across that, though I've not used it, and my other one is not doing anything yet. Anyway, what I heard you say, I think, was, okay, you weren't able to make the connection in a number of tries, and it went back to sending CQ. So my question falls under the realm of automation, which is the bane of some people. They will get rabid on us. And so how do you stay in control? There is a setting within WSJTX for DXpeditions where they can do a lot more, but the general setup, the default setup for most operators is you have to push a button before it starts doing things. So with the one that you're using, do you have like a cycle where if it fails on the connection that it switches to CQ, and that's something you consciously do, or is that a default thing that it does? And how do you feel about automation without getting too far down that?
Right, and I hear you completely right. So yes, WSGTX, if you the rules are slightly different in between the two. So WSJTX, if your contact fails, it won't bring you back to CQ. JTDX does, but in both cases, they have timeout timers, right? And they're set for 6 minutes default, and you can't let them run unlimited. I can't remember what the maximum is off the top of my head, but they do have, so like if you call CQ for 6 minutes, your radio is going to stop. Partly because you're being an annoying piece of garbage human, but also too, the duty cycle on your radio, you're just going to cook it because digital will make that stuff very, very toasty, very, very fast. And so we don't want to fry a radio because you know, if you pop smoke, that is a pricey repair. So that basically is that, I think, in a nutshell.
Can one shorten up the cycle? Like it's kind of like a timeout timer, you know. You end up sitting on your microphone and the radio goes off instead of the repeater stopping. But can in the software that you're using, can you make it a shorter cycle?
Oh, absolutely. So you can make it, yeah, a shorter timeout sequence, right? So instead of being 6 minutes, I could set it to 2 or 1 or whatever, right?
Cool.
Normally,
Thanks.
like I've got the attention span of a gnat. So like if after 4 calls I haven't got anybody, I'll just stop and move on to something else. And so I'm sitting there attending to it, but I know Ron and I have had a conversation where, you know, he'll be watching a movie with his wife or whatever, and, you know, like go click and then take a walk and come back a little bit later. And similarly too, one of the things in Grid Tracker is that you can set it to start calling CQ, and you can walk away from it. It's going to go for 6 minutes, but it'll have the option for pop-ups as well. So you could be out there, you know, like looking up or typing documents or doing whatever it is that you do on your computer on the regular. And then up comes the pop-up saying, hey, you've got a reply to your CQ from so-and-so, right? And then it's going to do the thing that it does in the background, because once the cycle goes, everything else is automatic, right? So the 6 message exchange doesn't really require a ton of interference. But that also raises the issue with pileup navigation, right? Because if you're calling CQ and conditions are perfect and everything is good, now you might have to try and do the mental gymnastics of like, okay, well, how do I deal with these, you know, with this pileup, right? I've got 5 operators trying to reach me at once. And that is something that I haven't quite figured out yet, because you want to answer as many QSOs as you can, obviously. And there are some folks out there with some slimy and semi-underhanded tricks that they can use. And I've read a little bit about some of these fox and hound modes. But, you know, just trying to be a courteous operator as anybody else and answer everybody that calls you. But if you've got 12 people backed up, like that's 12 times 15 seconds, you know, that of going back and forth that you have to try and manage. So, you know, propagational change before you get to the bottom of the list kind of thing.
Okay, we have our 7 o'clock plus 51. Any final questions, thoughts? Andy?
I was just going to say to Peter, just following up on his question, hooking up your radio to the computer is the hardest part of the whole thing. Once you've got that going, most of these softwares, they're sort of similar, even if they're not the same program, they sort of echo like with each other. And the difficulty, my personal experience was, it was, I think, equally hard to hook up a digital radio, Icon 705, to my computer as it was to hook up my analog one, IC 7000, using a sound card. They both took forever to do it. But once I had it for one program, all of a sudden everything else sort of fell in, and I could run lots of modes, including HF digital like VARA, which is a subject of another conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah. The same experience. It took me about 3 months to get WinLink Express working with my IC 7300, but then it worked, and I needed one little video clip I saw, and it worked.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think Peter, you're new not only to the club and you're new radio amateur, but you have experience coming out to the our coffee shack. That there's a bunch of guys there, and there's a bunch of guys here that are more than willing to help out with whatever you're doing. So you're more than welcome. Everybody is welcome to share. So I'm going to do a few thank yous here. First off, I'm going to thank Braden. Fabulous presentation, Braden. Thanks very much. I'm going to thank Andy once again for sharing his Zoom, which is great. It really, really facilitates things nicely. And I'm going to thank Kurt for his Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network link. I just popped it up on my other screen here. I'm going to make certain that's put up on the website. Try to get some interesting links out there, and this one looks really quite interesting about mesh networks with amateur radio emergency stuff, which is sort of cool. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us this evening. It's great. We've had as many as 13. We got a dozen here with us now, which is great. And just one final thing, Thursday night, a number of you are going to be joining me going to the UVic for the SDR workshop, which is going to be great. And it should be good fun. I think I've sent out a bunch of information for everybody here to find their way there. I know Doug joined me one time, and so he knows where we're going to. So that should be good fun. And one final thing.
What I missed there.
Peter, go ahead.
Tell us what I missed there about Thursday evening.
Sorry, put that by me again.
Where is the information about Thursday evening?
For the UVic get together? Yeah, I've had it out on the members' emails. Are you getting the members' emails?
Yes, I do.
Okay, it should be in the last
Okay.
last email. Scott?
First of all, it's my first time joining, so thank you for having me. It's a pleasure meeting you all. And secondly, I'm joining you from Up Island. I'm actually in Qualicum Beach, and I'm part of the Mid-Island Radio Association in Nanaimo. I'm going to put a plug in for Arden. There has been a ton of work done in this area with Arden. And I'm just thinking, Glenn, if you want to reach out to me, I can send some links to you. The Mid-Island Arden link, the IO link. And I'm also nominally the head of a special interest group that's playing with Meshtastic. I've actually got, just above my shoulder here, I've got a little 950 megahertz antenna with a couple other guys. We're just seeing if we can use Arden to extend it. It's very interesting. I won't bore you with the details, but if it's up to you, Glenn, I'd be happy to send the links. We meet every Monday night on Zoom. We welcome anybody to join us. So if you're interested in those things, I can get you the links for Zoom for both Arden and Meshtastic and some websites to look at.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll send you an email. I'll reach out to you, Scott.
Perfect.
Okay, and thanks for joining us. It's Andy and I receive these membership requests, and of course, Island HF is quite unique in that it doesn't cost you anything. Not necessarily better, not necessarily worse, just a little different. And of course, we get DA7 LMP. Who's this guy? And all of a sudden you appear here, and it's great. It's absolutely fantastic. One other thing I wanted to mention before I go. It's not quite 8 yet, so I'll hang in there. We're going to have field day. Island HF is going to have a field day. And we had a grandiose plan, which is no longer grandiose. So we decided to go to Plan B. And Plan B is going to be pretty close because it's going to be over the fence from Ron Richter, who's on the meeting here today, at Don Rosberg's place. And it's going to be, the first idea was to have something relatively formal But this time, we're going to have something that's going to be more focused on friendship, camaraderie, fun, pizza, beer, and maybe some radio. Okay. And it's basically going to be Saturday. So, we'll start setting up around 10 o'clock, get on the air, and go to 8 or 9 o'clock, depending on what the bands are like, and enjoy fellowship, which should be good fun. And we'll see how many contacts we can make. We'll see how many radios we want to bring out, how many antennas we'll throw up in the trees. We're not going to use Don's antennas. Maybe Ron will bring his DX Commander around, and we'll try vertical for a while, and Braden will get one of his things, and we'll throw it up in the tree, and we'll give it a shot. And we'll sit back and shoot the breeze, and do some CW, some FT8, some single sideband or smoke signals or whatever. Should be good fun. So that's going to be the fourth weekend. Unfortunately, Andy can't be with us. He's going to be doing some family stuff, which is great. But Andy's been super helpful with things like with Zoom, and we're going to ask him also to help us with a Zoom call in April for field day to get things get going. Anyways, once again, thanks, Braden. It's been fabulous. Oh, Doug, question?
Last time I was through the university, there was a lot of construction around the engineering building and everything. So that might affect parking and access to the building and so on. Have you been up there?
No, I haven't. So.
Yeah.
Well, we'll manage somehow.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, gentlemen. Thanks once again. 73s, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Braden.